It's evening now, and before I go home, I'm taking a walk through town. This sort of them at night over here, just showing it to you. And here's another thing: I don't upload recordings just right after I recorded them. Some recordings I keep in my archives and I upload them sometimes even months later. So I don't know when this upload will be online, but it doesn't matter when it's online. You're watching it, or else if it was online you couldn't watch it. So I don't know if you're watching this in 2016, 2020, or anyway. Right now, I want to continue the subject of what they call marine spirits, or they call them sirens, mermaids. Okay, it comes down to this. Those creatures that they call sirens, that's the official name of them, sirens. They also call them mermaids or mermen. Mermen refers to the male counterparts, mermaids to the female counterparts. Listen, most of you will remind such creatures from The Little Mermaid, that Disney production. Or you may have read some poems of the 19th century. And you may think those are all fictive creatures of people's imagination. Well, that's not exactly the case. Here's what you need to understand. In the world you have paradigms. Whenever people agree with a certain paradigm, a paradigm is a certain framework of how people perceive reality. When people agree upon a paradigm, they become blind to everything that's outside of that paradigm. For example, let's say that you have, let's say in an environment, in a town, you have 50 white swans. And let's say nobody in that town ever saw a black swan. So when someone's talking about the black swan, people tend to look at him or her thinking, sorry, are you out of your mind? Black swan? You need to go to a mental institution. You're not in your right mind. That's how people would react. Why? Because in their framework, the only types of swan that exist are white swan. There is no such thing as a black swan unto them, until they travel away to, let me say, to another district, and there they encounter a few black swan. And now they're thinking, now first of all they're shocked because they think, oh, they're in a black swan. So first when they see them, they dismiss it. Their brains resist the information because it's painful, because now they have to realize that the framework they were holding on to is just a framework. It's arbitrary. It's not a natural fact. It's not truth. So now they have to process that, yes, black swan do exist. Oh, they're calling upon evil spirits again, but okay, that's their problem. Okay, look, about those marine spirits, well, what they call sirens, mermaids, mermen, there are such creatures being found all around the world. In India, in the Caribbean. But do you think that such news will reach mainstream media? It won't. And by the way, a lot that is shown on mainstream media is fake. For the current, well, there are people today that explain that. People from the mainstream media industry itself that explain that a lot of news is fake, so I'm not going to argue much about it. But understand, when such creatures are found, they often just deny it. Why? Because if they have to admit that such creatures are real, then they also have to explain why they were told they were fictive. Then they have to go through the whole rabbit hole. And there's a lot invested into the rabbit hole, so that's why they won't go there. But if you do research and you use alternative media, you'll find out a lot of weird things that you'll never see in mainstream media or in mainstream research. What about those mermaids, mermen? They are spirit demonic entities. That's what they are. They're spiritual entities, but they're demonic entities. They are paranormal creatures. I've already made a short series about paranormal creatures. If you haven't watched it, please go watch it, because I'm going to repeat everything that I've spoken, that I've taught in those videos. Those creatures, marine spirits, they are basically the descendants of that demon that they call Neptune, or Neptunus in Latin, or Poseidon in ancient Greek. That dude with that fork, because they're all dudes, those fallen spirits. That spirit brought forth those hybrids, millions of them, because those hybrids begot, let me say, children, offspring with other hybrids of the same race, and now they are basically inhabiting the oceans and seas and even some rivers. And those creatures, they are extremely dangerous. Those creatures, they have intelligence, like people, more than people do, because they're spirit beings. Their ancestor, that fallen angel, he was a heavenly being, so he has a huge capacity of intelligence in his thinking. So those descendants share that. And people in ancient times used to worship Neptune. It's obvious because the Romans and Greeks have statues of that entity. And one thing you need to remember, when the sculptors at the time would make statues of those fallen angels, they would make them older. Why? Because let me say, old age tends to attract people, in the sense that you are perceived as wise and as someone with authority. So that's why when they would make sculptures or paintings of those unclean spirits they worship, they would make them older, so that those unclean spirits could appeal to the population. And once around the time of the Greek Empire, that's after Alexander of Macedonia, I won't call him the Great. It's after that the Greeks made standards of how to picture Neptune, how to picture Venus, how to picture all those entities. Because before that, everyone had their own imagination how such and such deity would look like. But okay. So Neptune, that fallen angel, is basically the father of those marine spirits. And people worship that demon in ancient times. Over time, though, Neptune fell into the background. And since, I would say, the colonial times, it's like about the time of Columbus till now, they are still worshipping marine spirits. Let me say, especially in Africa, they do it. But now it's what they call the Queen of the Coast. It's just a title. That's a title of what they call a mermaid, a female marine spirit, and she's basically the one ruling what they call the marine kingdom. I rather don't call it a kingdom, because I don't want to give credit to such creatures. Kingdom, absolutely okay, but whatever those occultists call a kingdom. And this Queen of the Coast is whom many wizards and many cults are worshipping. Now, why is this important? Why is this relevant? Because the agents that worship this Queen of the Coast, they are involved in child trafficking, they are involved in cannibalism, they are the paedophile groups, paedophile rings that molest children. In the Catholic Church, you also have many of them. And there are a lot of folks, often men, that go to wizards that are connected to the Queen of the Coast, and those wizards would often bring blood sacrifices, that means animal sacrifices, or sometimes even human sacrifices, just to get occult money from the marine spirits. It works like this: when they do their sacrifices, that negative energy just released. That's what those marine spirits use. Because remember, when a Nephilim dies off, when the body dies off, that creature itself keeps roaming around, because they don't go to Sheol and are isolated till Christ's return, because there's no resurrection for them, because they're not part of God's creation. They're just a virus that the Most High has permitted to exist. But eventually, they will all be thrown into the lake of fire. But when their bodies die off, they remain around as negative creatures, as unclean spirits, as evil spirits roaming around, seeking whom they can inhabit. The same with Nephilim from the sea, what they would call mermaids, mermen. So when those people rape those children, when they perform cannibalism, or when they do those traumatic rituals upon their victims, the negative energy is released. That's what those marine spirits use, because they need that waste energy in order to operate. And a lot of people go to agents of what they call the marine kingdom, or that mess. They do that in order to get quick manifestations of money. And a lot of people do that. In Africa do it also, people in Europe doing such stuff. Why am I revealing this onto you? So you will understand that things like paedophile rings or even terrorist organizations, they're not just part of some conspiracy. People think, well, the CIA is behind ISIS, the CIA is behind... Okay, I'm not going to argue whether it's true or not. You can do your own research. I'm just pointing out to you that it's more than just a conspiracy. It's worship. It's worship to those marine evil spirits. Those unclean entities that are inhabiting in the oceans, in some rivers, and in the seas. And in countries and near the sea. So don't talk about Austria, Czechia, the Czech Republic or Central Africa. I'm talking about countries near the sea. In such countries you have what you would call marine lodges, where people that worship such entities come, and in order to meet those entities, those sirens, and even to receive gifts from them in exchange. And so they do their rituals, create that negative energy in order to receive gifts from them. So next time you hear about another ring of pedophiles, or a ring of, I would say a ring of prostitution that's being caught, most of such groups are worshipping the Queen of the Coast. And the Queen of the Coast, it's a blue-eyed, long, curly brunette hair. She's a brunette, and she has brown skin. That's the type. That's how that demon looks. And some of those people that worship this creature, they even have a painting, or some even a photograph of that entity that they have in their house. So I'm not advising you to cause any trouble, but let's say you're at someone's house and they have this weird picture on the wall. Now I'm not telling you to be rude, but when they have a picture on the wall that looks quite type of weird, you can ask them about it. If you ask them and they're a bit vague about it, then there may be something behind it, because nobody just puts a picture on their wall that has no relevance onto them. For example, if you're a Chinese husband, you're going to put in your living room, you're putting the picture of you or your wife or your parents or someone that's related to you. Or if you want a picture of high school, but you're not going to put the picture in your living room of some African dude from Zimbabwe or something like that. You're not doing that. So pay attention to that. When people have pictures that they're putting in their houses, and you think it's quite odd, then that's a warning also. Look, I did not structure this recording. I'm doing this spontaneously. It's about 15 minutes now into the recording.